All right, guys, we're back. JE Live. Welcome back. It is a Tuesday. It's a crazy Tuesday. I was not expecting to get the news I got this morning about Cam Akers being as this. I'm a Rams fan. A lot of you guys out there are Rams fans, but I am joined here by a fantasy football expert. I mean, I've already had one on before, your co-host, Steffi Smalls. But Dave, welcome to the show, my guy. Huge fan of yours, and it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate the invite. Looking forward to talking a little bit of Rams today and hopefully chopping it up with some fantasy football talk as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to get me ready, man. I'm now into this, the underdog and all that. And I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, promo code Kluge will get you a free $25 on your. No, I'm kidding. No, man, Underdog is a blast, and this is actually my first year doing that as well. These best ball drafts, for anyone unfamiliar, what you do, it's basically like a mock draft because you don't have to do any in-season management. There's no trades, there's no waivers. You just draft a team, and then whoever scores the most points for each position, that's what counts towards your weekly score. And I saw a lot of people talking about this last year during the offseason, and I didn't think too much about it. And now here we are in July, still almost 2 months away from kickoff, and I've already drafted over 100 teams. It's kind of a problem at this point.
Oh my God. Over 100 teams.
Over 100, yeah. And I think 60 of them have Chris Carson on them, so I need to start diversifying just a little bit.
All right. I knew I liked you. I knew I liked you for a reason. No, I definitely have been a huge fan of Chris Carson since he came into the league. But I've found, oh yeah, absolutely. I've just found that there are guys that, I mean, and I'm sure because you said you need to diversify, you can, understand this. There are certain guys, I'm the pickiest drafter of all time. I literally look through the draft board and I'm like, not going to pick you. I would never pick you. No T.Y. Hilton. You're never going to be on my, it's like, and I didn't mean to just call him out by name, but I mean, there are guys like that, like where I would never touch them with 10-foot pole. Yeah. And then there are guys where I break my rule and I'm like, well, I'll give him a chance. Like Duke Johnson, who totally rigged me over the coals. So I think that's the funny thing. And the cool thing about fantasy is that you can basically build your own team. No one has to tell you how to do it. You just do it the way you want. And sometimes you're the expert. Sometimes you're not.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to go out and draft a quarterback in the first round because you really want to get your guy, I wouldn't recommend it. But the crazy thing is it could work out and you could win. I mean, we sit here and we try to break everything down and dissect things as much as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, nobody was saying that, hey, this undrafted free agent on this 2-win Jaguars team is going to finish top 5 at his position. And that's exactly what happened. And no matter how much we sit here and try to break it down, there are always these crazy outliers, and so much of the game is unpredictable. And I just crack that joke all the time. That even if you are one of the best fantasy analysts out there, 40% of your takes are still probably going to be wrong.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you had a tweet out there that was like, well, you guys get mad at me when I do something that's too easy, and then I do a hot take, you guys get mad. It's like that's like content creation in general. Like you throw a take out there, it's like, well, that's not spicy enough. Wow, you're barely stepping your toe in the water, and then you finally go you plunge, and they're like
you freaking hack
out of your mind.
That's how it goes, man. Time. And then the joke, the punchline to that was, and then when you finally hit that take that's just right, no replies, 2 likes, exactly. Nobody ever sees it. That's the way it goes.
Hey, I mean, I guess it's it is weird because it's like, when people it's like them somewhat agreeing with it or they're mocking you. I've had that too. I mean, yeah. I just the other day, or actually it was yesterday, I just had a random tweet blow up where I quote tweeted PFF about who the toughest player in football was. Apparently, I pissed off. I don't know if you saw this. I pissed off all these diehard JJ Watt fans by saying Russell Wilson. And I was like, man, Russell Wilson has played 144 games. He's never missed a snap. Or he's missed a few snaps. He's never missed a game. I've watched that guy get his ankle twisted in God knows what direction, thrown around like a rag doll by Aaron Donald, by Nick Bosa. He continues to get up, and he's the reason Seattle is a cockroach and they stay around as long as they do. And it just it cracked me up because people were like, no, there's no way. It has to be JJ Watt. JJ Watt gets contact each play. And it's an interesting, I thought this was an interesting debate because it's while he does get contacted each play, he's not playing in the deep trenches. He's not like Aaron Donald going, the interior. And on top of that, I mean, Russell Wilson's not getting, these small hits. He's getting tossed
He's
5
getting
yards down the
blown
field.
up. Yeah. And he's also probably 100 pounds less than JJ
Yeah.
Watt. JJ Watt, he's got a body that's built to take those hits. Russell Wilson does not. I think, I've probably got an inch or two on Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, speaking of unfortunate injuries, let's get into to Cam Akers a little bit, because man, that is I like, also you tweeted, like, if you're doing victory laps over an injury, I forget exactly what you said, but like I totally agreed with you, because it's like, what I mean, let's just take away the fact that, like, our fantasy football team, let's take away our favorite player, our favorite team, and let's just like remove all that. And what do you get? A human being. And that human being puts in all that work to get to where they're going to be. And at the end of the day, this happens where they're training, and it's right before training camp, and they get, I assume, a non-contact injury, tearing your Achilles, which, I mean, is just never good. Injuries aren't good in general, but Achilles, I mean, I said this and I felt bad saying it. I almost wish it was the ACL, because I feel like those are easier to come back from than an Achilles tear. I'm really worried about Cam Akers long term.
Rightfully so. I mean, Achilles are tough to bounce back from, and that's like we saw this with Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack had a great rookie campaign, and then tore his Achilles, and he's supposed to come back this year, but nobody knows what his involvement's going to be. Like, he might just finish out this contract, his rookie deal, and never be able to play football again. I mean, that's one where it has one of the lowest rates of coming back and being able to play 100%. We see it in basketball, we see it in football, and it's just not something that you can bounce back from. And then as a running back, it's probably the hardest position to bounce back from. You lose that step, you lose that ability to cut, and it can really, really screw up a career. So, prayers up to Cam Akers. I hope that he can bounce back, but an Achilles injury, that's, as close to a kiss of death as there is for an NFL running back, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's really tough. And when you talk about the shelf life of a running back only lasting until really 30, I mean, some guys you'll have Frank Gore out there, and you'll have an Adrian Peterson, but I mean, for the most part, it's 30. It's really tough, because having an injury like that really shaves off some time in your career, and there's no telling that he's going to be 100% the same guy when he comes back, like we're alluding to. Now, let's talk about the implications of this, and we can look at this from a fantasy perspective. Am I insane for thinking that Darrell Henderson is going to be a top 12 fantasy running back this season because of this?
Yes. I think that you're a little bit insane. I mean, I love Darrell Henderson, the talent. I think that this kid is a blast to watch. I didn't even think I wasn't that high on Cam Akers because of Darrell Henderson, because, a lot of people were putting Cam Akers into this top 5, top 7 discussion. And I didn't see it because I said they have a very capable backup in Darrell Henderson that is going to earn his touches. He's going to be involved in, just about every aspect of the game. He's really a do-it-all type of back. That being said, I just don't know if he's going to be able to handle a full workload. One of the reasons that people got so excited about Cam Akers is because you thought that he was slotted in to see 250, 300 touches a year. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to get that type of workload to Darrell Henderson. So, like, right now, if the everything shook out and week 1 this was the roster, I think realistically he should probably be like a top 15 running back. That's probably where I'd put Darrell Henderson. But I would be absolutely shocked if they don't pick somebody up before week 1, whether it's Todd Gurley, bringing Todd Gurley back, whether it's
bring him back,
Le'Veon Bell, Adrian Peterson, Duke Johnson. There are still so many guys out there. I don't think anybody wants Duke Johnson. I think that regardless of who they bring in, I think that Darrell Henderson is still going to be the lead back. I don't think there's any free agent out there that can really take that role away from him. But whoever it is just going to be an annoying thorn in the side. And so right now, I actually did my rankings today, and I moved Darrell Henderson to RB19. I moved him one slot ahead of I don't know if you can see here because we're close up, but I got the Bears helmet back here. I moved him one slot ahead of David Montgomery. And I think that talent-wise, I don't think that there's a huge gap there, but we know that Sean McVay does like to give the ball to one running back if they can get going. He likes to ride that hot hand. But, realistically, I think that he has the potential to crack the top 12, but I don't think that you should be drafting him as a top 12 running back.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it right now, at least for me, I'm looking at him in the third and fourth, but I'm not like 100% go and dive into that. I think he's going to have a great season. And I think the reason for that is because, watching the way things went with Jared Goff, um, I know this run game last year was like exceeding expectations, in my opinion, because one, I think the offensive line was always better than people gave it credit for. They're not the Super Bowl, built for tough offensive line of the year like 2018. But it's like they've had this reputation since 2019, and everything went down, in that season. It's like people don't realize how good they were in 2020, and so I look at they lose Austin Blythe, but for the most part they're all back. It says a lot that a new offensive line coach and Kevin Carberry is coming in is like, okay, he didn't make any adjustments. He had 3 guys in the draft that he coached that they didn't even go after, which says a lot to me. So I think the offensive line's good. That'll help Pendo. On top of that, he led the team in broken tackles last year, which was surprising. He had more than Akers, more than Malcolm Brown. He's great in pass pro, so that will allow him to stay on the field, which is very important. And I think he's a better receiving back than giving credit for. And they were finding that stride, I think, when when they were finding that stride, but Goff could not hit him in stride down the sideline. So for me, I look at Henderson. I look at the fact they added Stafford. So defenses are going to have to, they're going to have to be ready for anything because Stafford can make you pay. They added Deshaun Jackson, Tutu Atwell that can stretch the field. So I really kind of look at this, running game is like, even if it's Xavier Jones, who I'm really high on as a player, not fantasy wise, I think even if it was him, he could have a solid season. So I guess that's really why, you obviously you touched on it. You like, Henderson, the player, the talent. I think there's some stuff there where, he could get rolling and, who knows? And if they're up in big games, he's going to get a lot of touches, I think.
And like I said, his upside is absolutely that of, finishing, I'd say even finishing top 5 realistically. If he could play a full 17 games, I mean, he is talented. And this is a team that runs the ball and runs the ball well. So it's definitely in his range of outcomes. But I just think that you'd be crazy to pass up on a guy, taking him 12th overall, where you're passing up on a guy like Joe Mixon or Austin Eckler or some of these other guys that have higher upside, especially knowing that you can wait until the 3rd round and get Darrell Henderson. I love that call out though that you made because I have been beating that drum about Matt Stafford, Tutu Atwell, and Deshaun Jackson. We've never really seen this. It's been a very, people kind of give Sean McVay a little bit of crap, if you will, just for not having a very diverse playbook. And I think that he really had to kind of dumb it down with Jared Goff a little bit. And now that you've got Matt Stafford, who is over the last decade, he is the most accurate deep ball quarterback in the league. They didn't accidentally sign Deshaun Jackson and Tutu Atwell. There's going to be an element to this offense that a lot of people aren't talking about, and that's going to be the ability to stretch the field with either of those guys with an extremely accurate deep ball passer, and all that's going to do is open up even more opportunities for the running backs.
I agree. And, that's what I've been, shouting over here on this channel. And, people are like, oh, come on, you're just a homer. I'm like, hey, man, I've watched, man. I know Sean McVay isn't actually holding himself back that much. I know, because here's the thing. I think 2017 and 2018 Goff, you saw signs. This guy can make all the throws. But whatever happened in between, the Chiefs game and then honestly, the Lions game, he was different the rest of the way and was never the same. That Chiefs game, we saw 54-51. It's maybe the greatest regular season game of all time. I mean, he looked amazing. I mean, he was going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, and you're thinking as a Rams fan, wow, we got this guy for the next 10 years or whatever. And now it's like, you look in 2019, completely different quarterback. The whole team's different. But then in 2020, he starts off, like Jared Goff fashion, has some good games, some solid games, some good games for Jared Goff. But on top of that, you're looking at guys like Gerald Everett has the furthest yards of separation of any receiver in the league at one point, and he's sitting there with 400 yards receiving, and you're like, what is going on? Higbee's hurt. How the hell does he only have 400 yards receiving? And then you don't even get 1,000-yard receiver. You don't get 1,000-yard rusher. So last year it was like, not having that mobility that a guy like John Wolford brought to the table. I think really opened up the Rams' eyes. I think McVay always kind of knew, but I said, really the thing that did it for me, the glass shattered. I always was really hard on Goff. I mean, anybody could know that about me. But what I'll say is that the glass shattered for me in Detroit, or not Detroit, Miami, the Miami game, because they held Tua Tagovailoa at under 100 yards. They should have won that game. They lost by 11 because Goff committed 4 turnovers. And I just felt like at that point I was done. I couldn't take it anymore, you know? And I'm watching John Wolford.
It's one thing to have a to have a conservative having a conservative quarterback is one thing. We've seen a lot of conservative quarterbacks, win Super Bowls, like make it all the way. But when they're committing turnovers that are putting your team in a bad position, there's nothing more frustrating than seeing that as a fan.
It's so brutal because this is the organization that had Kurt Warner in The Greatest Show on Turf. And I'm like, we're stuck with this. We did this with Sam Bradford and the end of Mark Bulger. I mean, like, I don't want to see this again. I don't want to see Sean Hill dink and dunk. Like, no.
So I feel like so often, and I promise I'm not going to keep talking about the Bears this whole show.
No,
like there's so many similarities between the Bears and Sean McVay. Or I'm sorry, Matt Nagy and Sean McVay and the Bears and the Rams. You've got this guy where like you can see the potential of the offense. You see guys getting open, you see it happening, and then just a quarterback that is unable to fulfill the role as a quarterback. And like as a Bears fan, I can't tell you how many times I would see guys blowing the top off the defense. Guys just getting wide open, and Mitch Trubisky just making the wrong call over and over and over again. So I can empathize with you as a Bears fan, man. You watch that for 3 years, and now this year, we've got a new quarterback in Justin Fields or Andy Dalton, whoever the starter is going to be. You guys have a new quarterback in Matt Stafford, and I'm excited for Matt Nagy, as I'm sure you're excited for Sean McVay, because it's like we might finally have that skeleton key that can unlock the offense that we've been wanting to see for the last few years.
Oh, man. And I'll tell you right now, because I don't know if we were following each other early on in the draft process, maybe we were, but if you don't know, I had Justin Fields and Trey Lance ahead of Trevor Lawrence. I'm super, super, super high on both of Justin Fields and Trey Lance. I don't know how you got him where you did. I mean, it was a gift from God. That's the best way I can put it, because the fact that Patriots were like right there, they didn't trade up like 4 spots, would it cost them like a 3rd round pick at worst?
I mean, you want to talk about the stars aligning. It's like the Broncos, who were desperate for a quarterback and wanted Justin Fields. And then a couple hours before the draft, they're like, oh, hey, cool, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers. And then that ended up not happening. Like, there were so many things that fell into place perfectly for that to happen. And I couldn't be happier as a Bears fan, because the same thing, Justin Fields was my QB1 coming into this draft, and getting him at the value that we got him is just unbelievable.
Well, in Steffi's team, if they just decided to, kick Daniel Jones to the curb, I mean, they probably adjust Justin Fields right now. So it's like, the Eagles, that was a little bit of a shock to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every team, I was like, well, this team's taking Fields, and they didn't. And then, well, this team's got to, and they didn't. I mean, like, it was crazy. Like, I was nervous that the Lions were going to take him. I was shocked that he made it past 3. I thought the 49ers were 100% taking Justin Fields. I don't know if you saw, but I got some pretty good odds on that, and I laid $1,000 on them taking Justin Fields, because I was like, there is no way that Kyle Shanahan is going to pass on Justin Fields. Lost a little bit of money, but hey, that's what it's about.
Dave, I would have told you straight up, they're taking Lance because that's who I would want. That is how it works. Like, oh, George Kittle is your favorite tight end in the draft. He's going to fall to the 5th round, so the Rams are going to pass him 5 times, and then he's going to go to the 49ers or DK Metcalf or like it. I'm bitter. I think everybody goes to the NFC West at this point. Like, that's just how it feels. So
I do a show on Tuesdays, 2 Point Stance, with Lauren Carpenter. I don't know if you know Stepmom Lauren. We've been doing this show for a while. Yeah, she's fantastic. Great follow on Twitter. It's at Stepmom Lauren. But we've been doing the show on Tuesdays for quite a while now, and we just finished up our division recaps today, and we did the NFC West. And it's unbelievable just how much talent there is there. Like, every show has been an hour, and I was like, we should have had 4 hours just to discuss the NFC West, because there are just so many loaded teams in there. It's unbelievable. It is a fantasy football goldmine.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just think if like a guy like AJ Green comes to form, like just out of the blue, and he goes like, "What? Like, what's how?
Yeah.
What do you make? Like, if guys like him start to go off, like fantasy's gonna be bizarre. I mean, it kind of stinks in a sense because the kid that's name is totally escaping me right now, Rondale Moore. It like he fell in like a horrible spot. I mean, if you really think about it, like
I hate it.
Huge offensive mind in Cliff Kingsbury. I don't doubt that, but he's not even going to be like fantasy relevant this year.
And I think the kind of hope is that they're going to be running a lot of 4 wide receiver sets where you can have, because I mean, technically Larry Fitzgerald is still there. He hasn't announced his retirement yet, but let's just assume for the sake of conversation that Larry Fitzgerald leaves. So you're going to have DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, AJ Green, and Christian Kirk as the 4 wide receiver set.
Still
so
have Isabella. Like,
and I think the Isabella experiment is over at this point. I mean, he has been pretty terrible at this point in his career. So, I love Rondale Moore, the talent. And I couldn't agree with you more that was like the last team that I wanted to see him land on, because it's like, great, they've got a rushing quarterback, they've got DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, and now they've got AJ Green too. Like, is there going to be any way for Rondale Moore to get the ball?
I know. I mean, that's exactly how I felt. Now, I want to touch on a rookie wide receiver that I'm obsessing over in all my fantasy drafts. But before we get to that, I want to get your thoughts on a Rams tight end that was a wide receiver, Jacob Harris. He's made a ton of noise throughout the Rams circle. So much so, I'm getting plucked. He's getting plucked before me in drafts where people didn't even know who he was 2 weeks ago, and they saw my video and they're like, "Hey, thanks for the tip." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, this is ridiculous."
Welcome to the world of content creation.
I know, right? So that's why I like don't even want to do the draft, because like we do the dynasty draft with the rookies, and like my friends will just take, "Oh, you said he was good," so I'm like, but what are your thoughts on Jacob Harris?
I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. He wasn't a name that I knew until a couple of weeks ago. But realistically, I mean, it's not something that I get too excited about when I see a rookie tight end. If you're doing a dynasty draft, he's got all the measurables that you want to see in a prospect like that. And I think that he is a great guy to stash. But just like, I'm not trying to burst your bubble here, but I'm the same guy that's fading. I'm the same guy that's fading Kyle Pitts, because
I am too.
We've seen the rookie, just, how hard it is for a rookie to get up to speed as a tight end. They have to learn everything a wide receiver does. They have to learn everything a tackle does. They have to, catch up to the size and speed and strength that they're dealing with at the NFL level, which is totally different. So, I mean, even the best guys out there, I mean, Evan Ingram is like the weird outlier that actually had a very successful rookie season, but it's not something that we see often. If you want to look, since 1961, there's only one tight end that has received 900 yards. One tight end that has had 900 or more yards in a season, and that was Mike Ditka in 1961. That's how far you have to go back just to hit a 900-yard season. So, I just typically in fantasy football avoid rookie tight ends completely, but he's one of those guys that is kind of in like the Adam Troutman, Cole Kmet, Brevin Jordan, where he's got the measurables and can end up being a decent prospect. But I think that he's probably going to sit on your bench for at least a year or two before we ever see any real production.
Yeah, I mean, if a guy like Tyler Higbee gets hurt again, he could emerge. I think they'll use him, but I don't want to put money down on how much they'll use him. Like my video, and people have taken this out of context because I compared him to Calvin Johnson as far as measurables concerned.
Oh no.
So people took that out of context. And on top of that, they just assume that like I have him going over 1,000 yards on the season. Like, no. Like I was a diehard TJ Hawkinson fan. When I saw him not even get to like 800 or 700 or whatever, I was like, you know what? I'm out on rookie tight ends. Look at George Kittle. Okay. Year one, I thought was really impressive for a 5th round tight end. I mean, it really was when you look at it. But then year 2, he was exactly what I thought he was going to be, because at Iowa, he was always that talented. He had CJ Beathard. God knows why the 49ers drafted him. He's the reason he was a 5th round pick. But anyway, I digress. He had CJ Beathard holding him back. And I mean, this guy was a total mauler of a blocker, and they didn't really give him an opportunity to stretch the field. They had guys like CJ Fedorowicz also taking away reps from him. So, yeah, I mean, like, his second year, George Kittle emerges. Travis Kelce, it's a little different. Like, he got hurt his first year, and then his second year, which was kind of his rookie year. I mean, I'd call it his rookie year. I think he didn't even play the whole game of his rookie year. And he had like 800 plus yards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really, I agree with you, because with a tight end, you're not only a receiver, but you also have to be somewhat of an offensive lineman as well. And it's one of the hardest positions to play. Quarterbacks up there, and I would 100% say corners up there. God, yeah. I'd hate to have to backpedal like that. I mean, can you imagine that? Like, all right, hey, Rook, now you have to cover DeAndre Hopkins. Like,
backwards.
Like, exactly.
Running backwards, sticking on him, keeping your eyes on the quarterback. Like, yeah, there's a lot that goes into being a corner.
Or being an inside linebacker that is also a signal caller. That also would be awful.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen a rookie ever really take that role as a signal
Rams
caller.
might be doing that with Ernest Jones. So
really,
we will see. We will see. So yeah, the receiver I was talking about that I kind of totally segue out of, that was not the point. And anyway, Ja'Marr Chase, and he's not my number one receiver in the draft. I was all over Jalen Waddle. I still think Jalen Waddle was the better prospect, but I love Ja'Marr Chase's fit. And I love that he's with Joe Burrow. And honestly, I like that offense. People are like, well, the target shares, because Tyler Boyd, and I love Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. I'm like, no. Joe Burrow just got his guy. Like, he's going to be the guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you do know what I mean, because I've seen you say it as well. But like, what are your thoughts on, like, how early is it? What is too early to draft a guy like Ja'Marr Chase?
Well, this is kind of a weird season because 2020 just gave us so many unbelievable rookies. I mean, quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs. Like, 2020 was one of the most loaded classes that I could ever remember seeing as far as making an impact as rookies. So because of that, now people are starting to value rookies a lot higher than they have historically in fantasy football. So if you want Ja'Marr Chase right now, you got to cough up like a 6th-round pick for him, which is pretty crazy for a rookie wide receiver on a pretty loaded offense with a lot of playmakers. So I'm with you. That is Joe Burrow's guy. And I think that Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow are going to have a similar connection to what we saw in college. But what worries me a little bit is T. Higgins, because I thought T. Higgins was the guy. Like, he has all the makings to be an alpha receiver. We saw him break out last year, and I wanted to see that carry over into his sophomore season. And I thought that he was going to have this huge year. And I'm afraid that he's kind of the odd man out, because Tyler Boyd playing that role in the slot, his targets are going to stay pretty sticky year over year. His role isn't going to change. Where now I think Ja'Marr Chase comes in and kind of out alphas T. Higgins on his own team. And I don't know how they're going to really split it up too much. So out of this whole trio, people are just going to say, Tyler Boyd, he's the odd man out. He's the worst one there. Tyler Boyd is a great player. He might not be the same type of player as Ja'Marr Chase or T. Higgins, but he's still going to keep his role. So Ja'Marr Chase, realistically, like, if he dropped to me in the 8th round, that's where I'd feel comfortable pulling him the trigger on him. But everybody's got rookie fever right now, and I can't get him that late. So as of right now, I have 0 shares of Ja'Marr Chase.
I mean, I have like 4. I mean, I just, like, he's there in like I've been doing the 4th and 5th, and I'm willing to pay that. Like, another guy I'm willing to go super high on, Najee Harris, because I think he's going to be transcendent. I really do. Maybe that's part of me liking Alabama and being a fan of his, but I just think, that Steelers offense, people have it backwards. Yes. I mean, the offensive line is new, right? There's a lot of new pieces, but when you look at like the way Kevin Dotson played last year, I'm not worried about him. Okorafor, I'm a little worried about. Solid in pass pro, run game, not all that great. There's some pieces there, right? Now here's the thing. I think Kendrick Green is going to be huge. He's going to be a godsend for the middle of that offensive line. And he's so athletic. He can get to the second level. On top of that, let's be honest here. Like, Najee Harris just makes things work. Like, he is going to bounce off guys left and right. He will hurdle somebody until Mike Tomlin grabs him by the face mask and tell him never to do it again. And I mean, honestly, after watching Todd Gurley do all those, I'm over it. But I mean, I just look at Najee Harris and I'm like, I think Ben Roethlisberger really wants to use him as, honestly, don't be surprised if he's the number one weapon on the Steelers. And I know they have Claypool, I know they have Deontay, and they have James Washington, they have Juju, and they have Freiermuth. But Najee Harris comes in, he's an older rookie, he's experienced with a top-notch team, a top-notch program, they played in top-notch games. And I just feel like he's somebody that's already shown you he can create. You know, he can make plays with, you know, whether he's running the football, whether he's, you know, being a receiver, go up and grab it one-handed in the end zone, whatever he wants to do. The dude's a superstar, potentially. And I think, for me, I would pick him at the end of the first, early second.
Yeah, and that's pretty much where he's going. And I feel like it's kind of gotten to the point where there's this just narrative that the Steelers O-line sucks, and now everybody's off on Najee Harris, and it's kind of opened up this buying window for him, where now you can get him for what's probably a better price than he, you know, should be going for, with him dropping into the mid-second round, because prior to rookie drafts, you know, everybody kind of knew he was going to Pittsburgh, but it wasn't official yet. So prior to the rookie draft, a lot of guys were taking Najee Harris in the top 5, you know, hoping that he was going to land in Buffalo or something like that. And then he landed in Pittsburgh, and it put this sour taste in everybody's mouth, and he started falling down draft boards. And I love him right now, because one of the biggest things that I chase, especially with these early picks, is volume. And you can almost etch it in stone that he's going to see 275 touches this season. I mean, they are going to relentlessly feed him the ball. He's going to be involved in the passing game. I loved when one of the beat reporters called him out, and they said, "Hey, you know, we were watching your practice today, and you made this really nice one-handed catch. We didn't know you could do that." He goes, "And you haven't been watching my tape. I've been doing that since middle school." I mean, like, he's going to be involved in the passing game. We saw the way that this team would just run the offense through Le'Veon Bell a few years back. And I think Najee Harris is going to step right in and take that Le'Veon Bell role for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 100% what he's going to do. Another thing I'll add to that, Dave, is people aren't realizing Randy Finkner might be the worst offensive coordinator I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, that, like, don't like discount how much his play calling had to do with how poorly they were blocking and how poorly the run game was. And not only that, I'm sorry. Like, I saw Benny Snell earlier today being rumored by a Steelers Twitter account, and they were saying rumored to be traded to the Rams. Like, I don't want Benny Snell, and that is who you're trucking along. You're bringing him. You're bringing. I love James Conner's story. I love James Conner. Right, like, dude's awesome, but he can't stay healthy. He's not consistent. I don't want to rely on him. So it's him. Then you have Anthony McFarland, who they barely used, you know, and then I believe Jalen Samuels. But aside from that, I mean, that's not very attractive. And so when you're wondering why your run game isn't going anywhere, well, it's not like you have a Najee Harris. Maybe if you had Najee last year, it's a completely different story.
I was low-key kind of excited for Kalen Ballage until they went out and got Najee Harris. When he was sitting at the top of that depth chart right there, you know, James Conner was gone. They brought in Kalen Ballage. I was like, we might actually see a good season out of Kalen Ballage. That dude is just built like a Mack truck. I would have loved to see him with a full season, but unfortunately, we'll never know what could have been, and he'll be remembered for his sub 2 yards per carry in Miami.
I know, and it's so upsetting because seeing him get going with the Chargers was really fun to watch, because this is somebody that I loved in the draft. And then I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and everyone was talking about Rashad Penny. I'm like, no, Kalen Ballage, every drill, the dude just moves so fluidly. He carries his weight so well. Then I interview him on the field, and the dude is he looks how you would expect him. He is a monstrous. But then when you see him run it, he ran a 4.4. He moves like a gazelle. You're like, man, he just does such a nice, he carries his weight so well. He's so fit, and he's a perfect, honestly, he's like a physical freak for the running back position. And really, there were a lot of, the problem is I think he got caught in a crossfire where there were coaches that are like, he's a running back. There are coaches that thought he was a receiver. And so he was doing so many receiver drills too, where I think there were times where it was like, dude's trying to focus on one position. They're trying to push this position. So I think it took him a little bit. There was an adjustment, but you saw that with the Chargers. I mean, you saw when he got going, they were able to use him, he showed flashes of brilliance, and I was surprised to see them not retain him when you're sitting there. Austin Eckler's great and all, but he's also a little small guy that does get hurt. You have Justin Jackson, really hasn't done much of anything. Joshua Kelly I like, but like, it's like I would still take Ballage out of all those guys in a full 17 game season.
Yep.
And I mean, Eckler's getting drafted in the first 3 rounds, but I mean, that's what I would do, and now that he's with the Steelers, it's like all those opportunities are just gone. And it's so depressing.
I mean, since we brought up the Chargers, can we just talk about Austin Eckler a little bit? I don't know
Absolutely.
what the theme for this show is, but Austin Eckler is my guy, dude. I am falling in love with him this draft season. There's 2 things that I want to call out real quickly when I was digging a little bit. So obviously, starting has been a struggle for him, whether it's been missing games or whether it was sharing, duties with Melvin Gordon. But if you look solely at the games that he has started since the start of 2019, which, I think it comes out to 18 games or something like that. Per game, he is 3rd overall in PPR scoring. It's Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler.
My God.
I mean, and now he's finally got an opportunity where he's going to head into the season as the RB1 for that team. So my ranking right now, I've got him sitting as RB7 overall in my rankings. I have so many shares of Austin Eckler across all my leagues. I love this dude, man. He's such a fun player to watch, and having those guys that are able to catch the ball out of the backfield, especially in PPR leagues, it's just a cheat code almost. So that's the other thing is, so many people say, well, Phillip Rivers was old and he had this noodle arm, and that's why he checked down to Austin Eckler all the time. Per game, Austin Eckler saw more targets per game last year with Justin Herbert than he saw in his best season ever with Phillip Rivers. So if you're sleeping on Austin Eckler should not be making it out of the 2nd round in any of your leagues. And if you got a late 1st, early 2nd round and it's a PPR league, pull the trigger on Eckler because he's set for a huge year.
And his story's cool too. Dude just comes out of like nowhere. And honestly, like Melvin Gordon, like he's the reason Melvin Gordon didn't get paid. And I'm honestly kind of like, I don't feel bad because like Gordon couldn't stay healthy. And then, it was just this whole thing like where he's like, I'm going to hold out. And it's like, Eckler goes there and then he gets his stuff done. And then all of a sudden he becomes the guy. And I mean, I won't get into how annoying it was having 2 teams sharing Hard Knocks in an hour, but I like the concept. And I don't want to say I have a soft spot for the Chargers because I feel like the Rams fans are going to obliterate me right now, but I don't know. It's like, I love Herbert, love him, love Eckler, love Keenan Allen. I think he's the most underrated receiver in the league.
I love Mike Williams too.
Your guy's pretty underrated. Allen Robinson there. Most contested catches in football. But I mean, they have some really likable guys. They have my guy from Kansas, Chris Harris Jr. They have Derwin James, who I feel just so bad for. Dude just can, I mean, he can't stay healthy. If he stays healthy this year with Brandon Staley, he's going to have like a Jalen Ramsey impact. I hope everyone's ready for that. That could be potentially the best safety in football.
But I just said that word for word a couple weeks ago on a Footballguys show, actually. I like it. I did. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Derwin James. I love him.
Oh, he's awesome. I like, if you're safety, please be able to do everything. Please don't be afraid to tackle. Please have range, stick your face in the fan, please. Like, I don't, it's like people are like, oh, he doesn't get any playing time. Because the dude is like allergic to making a tackle. He does not want to go up there and actually try to tackle the guy. He's going to weigh him. Career decision. I'm like, no. You're not a nickel corner who's about to run into Najee Harris. Like, you're a safety. You're supposed to initiate the first contact. I mean, it's like, but that's the thing. I don't have that issue with Derwin. And then he's got another guy there, Nasir Adderley, who I really like and saw at the Senior Bowl out of Delaware. But they also got Asante Samuel, and I think that it's really going to help their defense. I just think, to me, the Chargers, like, I have them in the Super Bowl playing the Rams. I think they are absolutely terrifying, and I don't have them win the division because I can tell you right now, I think the Chiefs are going to beat them. They're going to win the tiebreaker, and then I think the Chargers would upend them in the playoffs because I think they're going to get better as time goes on. And Brandon Staley, man, he's a freak. I mean, he took the Rams. I've never seen a defense like that in my lifetime for the Rams because I mean, the fearsome foursome didn't exist when I've never seen the fearsome foursome in person. So like next person that tells me that, but I mean, for real, like Brandon Staley is the truth. And I think the thing that is misunderstood with him is that he's this defensive guru. And so since he's not an offensive mind, like the offense is going to, completely fall off a cliff. And that's not true because newsflash, you might know this, Brandon Staley was a quarterback. Brandon Staley has offensive background. And a lot of these guys that get like, pigeonholed into these like scenarios, like that was the big thing about Raheem Morris for me when the Rams grabbed him as the defensive coordinator. This guy was the receivers coach in Atlanta. I mean, these guys have all sorts of jobs. If you can't see both sides of the football field, I mean, if you can't see both sides of the game, you're not going anywhere in coaching. Like it's really funny how guys get pigeonholed in certain ways.
Brandon Staley came from Chicago, wasn't he? The linebacking coach a while back. Yeah, I think he was a linebacker coach. I mean, he's kind of done a little bit of everything now on his way up.
Exactly.
And he's like you said, he's a stud. I mean, his rise through NFL ranks has been meteoric. Like just hit the NFL 4 years ago, and now he's got a head coaching gig.
Oh my God. Like and just anything, and I'm sure you can attest to this, but like anything Fangio touches, I have to look because it's like he's right now, I think he's the best defensive mind in football. I mean, I don't even think
terrible
it's close,
coach.
Really. He's not a great coach.
but he's a great coordinator. Yeah.
The defensive mind he has, I mean, God, they got Kyle Fuller back with him, and they just got Surtain.
Yeah, like we don't talk about that Kyle Fuller. We don't talk about that in Chicago.
Oh, I gotta ask you. I gotta ask you. So, all right, what are your thoughts on Chuck Pagano?
I mean, again, like kind of like we were talking about James Conner earlier, great story, love the guy, feel for him. But everybody, when we lost Vic Fangio and brought in Chuck Pagano, everyone was like, oh, it's the defense. They've got so many elite players. They're not going to miss a beat. And I was like, do you realize what Vic Fangio does for this team? And, that defense lost his edge. It is not the same defense that we've seen. I think a lot of that had to do with, I think the bigger thing that people kind of discount is Eddie Goldman. Opting out of COVID last year, and now he's mulling retirement. So we had this beast of a nose tackle, 27 years old, that was just gonna, be this cog in the defense for the longest time. And with them playing a 3-4, you need that role. And they don't have anybody to fill that right now. But yeah, Pagano, I don't hate him. I mean, I think that he's a solid defensive coordinator, but the defense definitely lost the edge that they had with Fangio.
I agree. And the biggest thing, like, because I loved, I mean, people thought I was insane. I would just go and watch Bears tape because I just loved their defense. I loved what they did. Eddie Jackson was defensive player of the year worthy and with Fangio. And now it's like, what is he doing? And I think Fangio literally took everything he did with Eddie Jackson and turned Justin Simmons into that. And so it's so hard for me to look at it because I'm like, bro, Eddie Jackson is still a superstar somewhere in there. Like, what is happening? Like, can you add anything on that? Because I don't know how you go from that to, I just think the way they use him is probably what's holding him back.
Yeah, I think that turnovers are very fluky. It just needs to bounce the right way. And if you watch, it's not like he was making these big breaks. There were so many of those that were tip balls that he would end up just taking. And then I think once he gets the ball in his hand, he's a playmaker and he could take it to the house, which we saw a few times. But, really, it just seemed like a lot of right place, right time. It's not like he was going out there and really making these huge explosive plays on defense as a rookie, and his stat line at the end of the year was great. And I agree with you that, given the interceptions and the touchdowns he had, he should have been in the running for defensive player of the year. But since that rookie year, he just hasn't been the same player. I don't know if he lost a step, but he just doesn't seem to be, it was like he was cleaning up every single tackle. He was just there on every single play. And I don't know if this is with Fangio leaving or what it is, but he doesn't have that same impact that he had as a rookie.
That's such a bummer, man. He was so fun to watch. And again, it's probably because I like Bama, but I mean, just, I mean, he was really like another level that year. And I mean, I remember distinctively that play. We're dating ourselves a little bit. Sam Bradford's back to pass, throws to the left sideline. You have Kyle Fuller, and then Amuka Morrow's on the other side, but you have Kyle Fuller. You have Eddie Jackson playing single high safety, and he's just baiting him, man. And like, it's so fun to watch because you can see Bradford in all 22. He's like, oh, I got him. Like, he's done. Right. And then Eddie Jackson comes flying into your living room and just picks the pass off. And it's just like, that's the stuff I loved about him, because obviously it's well known how like athletic he was. But that range is just very like, it's just very rare to have that type of range as a safety, to be able to play in the middle of the field and then just sprint and cut off the deep pass the other side, because it was not cover two. This guy was manning the whole center of the field. And that's just, I haven't seen him used in that way. So I wonder if maybe he just got so used to being that guy. Maybe you want to be that playmaker, that maybe he's just not as, I don't want to say he's not into football as much, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, where he was that, like, the headline grabbing guy that would just cut off the deep play. And because you're always in that situation, if a ball gets tipped, you're going to be there for it.
Right. Yeah. And you see that a lot of times where these guys come out, you know, when they're young and they're making the big plays, and then they just kind of trail off very, very quickly. Yeah. You know, we'll talk about another Bears player, but Devin Hester, that's exactly what he did. Like 80% of his touchdowns were in his first 3 seasons, and then he didn't do much with the rest of his career after that. It's like you get comfortable, you make a name for yourself, and it's kind of easy to just fall off a little bit.
Peyton Hillis.
Oh my God. Yeah.
No, the Madden cover got to him.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
We use that excuse all the time.
Has anybody broken that curse yet? I mean, even Lamar Jackson had a down year last year. I think that curse is still standing. I don't know if anybody's really come out and balled out after making the Madden cover yet.
Yeah, I mean, Brady didn't have his best year, but won a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, if anybody's going to break it, it's Brady, right?
Yeah. God.
That Peyton Hillis one, though, that was funny. That was the first year that they put it out to the internet, where instead of them just choosing somebody, they were like, all right, you know, you guys can pick. And of course, a bunch of fantasy football nerds picked the little bowling ball out of Cleveland to make the cover.
Oh, yeah. It became a meme, man. I think people were like getting mad at others. Like, you didn't vote for Peyton Hillis? Like, are you kidding me? I was like, as long as there's not a Ram on the cover, I don't really care.
Yeah.
I was just like people are like, oh, come on, AD be on the. I'm like, no. Aaron Donald, stay the hell away from that cover. I mean, he's on just another level of a pace. But let's get back to fantasy here. And so we were, you know, talking about Eckler, who's in that, you know, discussion of going in the first and second round. There's a guy that like keeps falling, and Steffi mentions him all the time, and I'm a huge fan of him. Damien Harris. Why is he falling? Sony Michel has basically shown nothing for me to believe that he's going to take away carries. James White is going to James White, but I mean, that's still plenty of touches for Damien Harris. Why is he falling into like my 10th round?
Yeah, and Damien Harris is a guy that I love, and I've been drafting a ton of him. And I think that there's just kind of this like emotional aspect where people don't want to touch a Patriots running back because, you know, since Corey Dillon, they haven't really had a guy that's been like consistent year over year, or the guy. You know, Bill Belichick loves to roll out these committees. And like you said, James White's going to have his role as a pass catcher. So I think the ceiling for Damien Harris is very, very limited, because it wouldn't surprise me if he's just the early down back between the 20s, that once they get close to the red zone, they pull him out and they use James White so they can, you know, run some screens out of the backfield. Or the other big fear is obviously that Cam Newton is just the goal line back, and they don't even give the ball to a running back. That just
entered my head, and now I understand.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, if you look at all of the guys they signed this offseason, you know, Nelson Aguilar, he's the field stretcher, but every other guy, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, these are all red zone guys. So the fear with Damien Harris is, well, he might be able to compile, you know, 1,000, 1,200 yards, something like that. Are the touchdowns going to be there? If the touchdowns are there, are they going to go to Damien Harris? I mean, Cam Newton threw 8 touchdowns last year. This isn't going to suddenly be a powerhouse offense. Yeah. So you're looking at a team that's going to be pretty low in scoring, is going to be splitting carries a little bit, and then you don't know who the goal line back is going to be. They went out and they got Ramondre Stevenson, so there's a very good chance that once they get inside the 20, they yank Harris and they put Stevenson in there just to be that goal line guy. We don't know how it's going to shake out, but what we do know is that Bill Belichick really likes to muddy the waters when it comes to how he's going to deploy his backfield. So given where he's going right now in the 9th and 10th round, I think that he's a great value and he could smash his ADP, but his ceiling probably isn't any higher than like RB 15 or 20, just because we know that he's going to be splitting carries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned Bill Belichick, trying to muddy the water. I mean, this is the dude that threw in Jonas Gray when you couldn't even pick him up, and they're like,
Oh
"Yeah,
my
4
God.
touchdowns."
I
That
forgot
made me
about that.
so mad.
I
I went to
completely
pick him
forgot
up
about
and
that.
just no, couldn't do it. And then it's weird in another league. I wasn't on ESPN. I was doing something else, and of course, the guy I was playing against picked him up. He had like 40 something points. I'm like, get out of here with that. But I mean, yeah, I think, that's some great insight. I didn't even think about Ramondre Stevenson. Now I'm gonna, trade Damien Harris. No, I'm kidding. But but I mean, he was a beast at Oklahoma. Dude is huge, and he could be a really nice piece if as long as he holds on to the ball. That's basically to play running back in Bill Belichick's offense. All you have to do is hold on to the football. Like, I mean, that's really all he wants. Like, don't turn the ball over. I mean, we've seen what's his face? Ben Jarvis Green Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Off
liked Ben
purpose.
Jarvis Green Ellis, and then he could not, he couldn't hold on to the football. Jonas Gray, that's what kicked him out. I mean, he had the 4 touchdown game, and then he was like inactive the next game because they said he was fumbling in practice. I mean, this
Yep.
guy is going to hound you, and I mean that's part of his excellence, I guess.
But a big thing in fantasy football is premium touches for a running back. And what premium
Yeah,
touches are passing down work and goal line work. And the fear with Damien Harris is that even if he's going to see, 60% of the running back touches, he might not get any of those premium touches. He's not a great pass catcher, and they have better guys that are suited for goal line work. So he could, like I said, he could just be one of those guys that can put up a lot of yards, and realistically not really be that great for fantasy.
yeah, and of course that amounts to like 10 points. So it's
Exactly.
like,
And that's
you're
kind of where I think James Robinson falls this year too. Now with Travis Etienne, and I think that
that's
James
such a
Robinson,
bummer.
he's going to be that first down, second down guy in between the 20s, and he's going to have some games where it's like, great, you really move the chains, but at the end of the day, that's 7 points for fantasy football because you carry the ball 15 times for 70 yards and no touchdowns and no receptions. And those players, as valuable as they are for real life football, they don't really help you too much in fantasy.
Oh, it's so true. And I always get into, and actually you've been at the forefront, right, of drafting like tight ends early on.
Mhm. I'm
Okay.
definitely one of those guys.
Yeah, I've seen you.
Yeah.
It's growing, man. I've never seen this before. But it makes sense because you're in a league now where there's 3 elite tight ends and then there's everyone else. There are guys that have potential. Like you have Kyle Pitts if he, makes us both look silly or whatever. You have TJ Hawkinson. Irv Smith is intriguing for me. I really do find him intriguing. Evan Ingram is still somewhat intriguing. I know,
Oh,
Steffi gives him
I
all
like Evan
sorts of
Ingram.
crap, but
See, here's a fun
um,
one on Irv Smith. He was second in points per target last year among all tight ends.
really,
So the dude's an efficiency monster. I just worry how much
yeah.
ball there is to spread around between Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook. I don't know if there's going to
Well,
be a lot of opportunity.
Kyle Rudolph had to get out of the picture for that to even
Right,
matter,
right.
Well, Cole Kmet's interesting over in Chicago,
Yeah, if they cut Jimmy Graham, I mean, at one point, right when the season ended, Cole Kmet was my tight end 8, which would have put him, as one of the top, 10 guys. And I really thought that was going to happen. And then, we talked about Kyle Fuller a little bit ago, and I was rolling my eyes and shaking my head because I hate talking about it. But
Sorry.
the Bears needed to open up cap space, and of course, instead of cutting their 34-year-old tight end when they've got this young stud tight end that took over midway through the season, no, they kept Jimmy Graham and they cut their all-pro quarterback, which was their biggest need on the team. So don't even get me started on that. But that's kind of my fear now is that Jimmy Graham there is going to cap Cole Kmet's breakout.
Yeah, I get that. I think that's, I mean, well, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on what Delaney Walker is saying about Anthony Ferkser? Do you buy into that, or do you think that's just,
I mean, Ferkser was a good pass catcher.
yeah.
I mean, that was his role last year, and that's why Jonnu Smith is the guy that everybody gets super excited about. And then these casual fans are watching Titans games, and they're like, "Who is this guy playing tight end? Why is Jonnu Smith blocking every play?" And
Oh
well,
my God, that's so true.
and then Taylor Lewan, he got hurt last year, so they had to call on Jonnu Smith to block, and Anthony Ferkser stepped in as a very good pass catcher. So Anthony Ferkser was a guy that I was loving until Julio Jones got signed there. They've still got Derrick Henry. He's still going to see 250 plus carries. And then again, this is just an opportunity of like, do you really want the third passing target on a run first team, because I don't, and while I think that he could potentially break out, there's some other late round guys that I'm a little bit more excited about. Actually, Jonnu Smith. If I miss out on those top three, Jonnu Smith is a guy that I think is going to get a lot of manufactured touches for him. I think that he is going to be the go-to guy once they get in the red zone. And like we were talking about Damien Harris getting yanked, it wouldn't surprise me if Jonnu Smith goes in and runs some as the goal line back there.
Oh yeah, I mean he did that a couple
Tennessee
times.
did it. Yeah, he was a 100% on goal line carries last year.
That's nuts, man. There's another guy by the name of Gerald Everett, who we mentioned earlier. I mean, we talk about the fact, hey, he had the most yards of separation, and well, Jared Goff didn't take advantage of it, but Russell Wilson will. So, what are your thoughts on Gerald Everett? Because I think he's going to outperform Tyler Higbee.
I couldn't agree more. I love Gerald Everett. And the thing is, like, people love to go back and look at the production that we've seen from tight ends in Seattle over the last few years, but that doesn't really tell the full story because we haven't seen a healthy tight end in Seattle for I don't even know how long. Jimmy Graham was getting hurt, Jacob Hollister, Will Dissly, any of these guys that step in look great. Like this is a system that's built to get the ball to a tight end. And now you finally have a young, talented, athletic tight end. So I love Gerald Everett. And he's another one of the guys where if I miss out on the top three, it's Jonnu Smith is my next target. And if I miss Jonnu Smith, I'm moving down to Gerald Everett as my next guy.
No, I hear you. I mean, it's funny because I don't fault the Rams for not bringing back Gerald Everett. But I do fault fans for trying to say that Gerald Everett won't be good in Seattle, and as if Jared Goff wasn't holding him back. Because I mean, I'll say this over and over again: if he was with Matthew Stafford, I mean, he'd be a top 10 tight end for me this year. Yeah. And I really like Tyler Higbee, and he's shown in the past he's given us spurts where you're like, okay, that's why they gave him that contract. But I just worry about his durability, man. And I think that's, I talked to Bryson Hopkins at the Senior Bowl, and he said they envisioned him and Tyler as a tandem, not Gerald Everett. So I was kind of thinking this early on, Gerald Everett's not going to get that contract. And then they get, Bryson Hopkins. They also get Jacob Harris. They have Johnny Munt. I kind of felt they were good because what I think they're going to do is they're going to bulk up Bryson Hopkins, and he will be, taking over for Tyler Higbee. And then they're going to keep, which is very interesting, they're going to keep Jacob Harris light so they can use him as kind of that flex guy, the big tight end. But then where does Gerald Everett fit? He doesn't. He's over in Seattle. And you mentioned Will Dissly. He's a guy that I've really liked, but he can't stay healthy. To save his life. And it's so upsetting because, I mean, I'm sure you have a stat out there. I don't know if you have it with you, but his, points per target or whatever is probably absurd because every year he starts off so good and then he tears ACL or something.
And I believe his most recent one was in Achilles. I think that's what he hurt most recently, wasn't it? Yeah. So I'm almost positive that's what it was that knocked him out last.
That's not good. I will say I remember they did add Colby Parkinson, super athletic out of Stanford. That's a guy I would definitely, if Gerald Everett kind of stutters a little bit out of the gate, Colby Parkinson's athletic enough where I think with Russell Wilson, and this is the beauty of having a quarterback like Russell Wilson, it doesn't matter who you put at tight end. As long as you can get open and you can catch the football, you have Russell Wilson, who's one of the most pinpoint accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not just talking about generally accurate. I mean, he will literally get it to you. Hey, do you want it by your ear? Or do you want, he will literally get it to you where you want it. He's incredible, man.
Yeah. I'm going to have a question for you at some point. I'm not sure how long the show is, but there is one I want to throw your way. So let me know when you're ready for that.
Throw me a question my way.
As a fantasy guy, I cannot figure out if I want Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp more. And I go back and forth on this. Every single day I'm changing my mind. So tell me what's your take as the Rams guy. Do I want Cooper Kupp or do I want Robert Woods?
You want Robert Woods. And I know it's crazy because I know some people are like, oh, Cooper Kupp's he's unbelievable and everything. I'm like, they're really close. But what puts Robert Woods on top, and again, we're splitting hairs here, but if you have to break that tie, it's his ability in the run game. And now without Akers, he's going to have probably more carries. He had, I think, 28 last year. I mean, that's somebody to me, Robert Woods' ability in the open field. He's like a running back, and he does such a nice job of, he's got great contact balance. I mean, I watched him take.
It reminds me of Debo a little bit.
He's similar. He's similar. Yeah. He reminds me of like Sammy Watkins in college. How like when he got the ball, like he's not afraid. Like once he's out in the open, he's a running back. And it's weird because does he look like a running back? Come on now. He's pretty skinny, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've met the guy. Dude looks like Slender Man. But here's the thing, okay? He is so methodical in his approach. And guys aren't just good at yards after the catch just because they run and they make the catch. It's all about ankle flexion, putting yourself in the position to then make that movement after you make the catch. So this isn't just his ability after, with running the football. I think Robert Woods is a better receiver after the catch than Kupp. And I don't think it's by a mile. And Kupp can probably catch up to him at some point because keep in mind, Kupp's also missed some time.
Right.
And Robert Woods hasn't been hurt since 2017. That also goes to my argument of why I would take Woods over Kupp, because he's shown that freak shoulder injury against Minnesota. I think it was like week 4 of 2017. I mean, again, it was a freak shoulder injury. It wasn't a good throw by Goff. He put himself in a weird situation to try to make a play, and, he hurt his shoulder. Kupp has had multiple injuries. You're talking about a torn ACL. You're talking about the leg injury he had in the playoffs. I still don't know what happened there. I think it was a contusion. I think it was his knee, actually. That's my biggest issue with Cooper Kupp, and I love them both. And I don't think you can go wrong choosing Kupp over Woods because you could be banking on the fact maybe Kupp has more of a rapport with Stafford than Woods. He's taller for one because he's 6'2" and Woods is 6 foot. So that's definitely something. Maybe he gets more of red zone targets. We saw that. I know it's just, like not even training camp. It's like a mini camp, right? Mini camp video, him throwing that touchdown. But hey, Cooper Kupp can make plays. Robert Woods can make plays. These guys are going to be better than they were with Goff. Now, the question is, are they better suited for PPR, or are they more of like a standard league type of guy? Because PPR, they were like demons in PPR because Goff would dink and dunk. And then now it's like, wait a minute, is Stafford gonna, use them deep? I mean, this is somebody I watched him like, hey, Danny Amendola, I know you're 5'9", but here you go. And it's like double coverage, like go up and pluck the football, my guy. And he does it. And like, that was the thing. Like when I watched Stafford's film, I've been watching him for years.
He loves
this is why. Yeah, and I was laughing when people were like, the Rams are going to go out and get Julio Jones. I'm like, no, they're not. And then I was laughing even more when they said the reason they're going to get Julio Jones is because Matthew Stafford needs Julio Jones. Like, come on now. Stafford was throwing to Hunter Bryant and enjoying it against the Titans last year. Hunter Bryant may have been a darling in draft Twitter, but he went undrafted, and he was like a 4th-string tight end. And they're in a close game against the Titans, deep down the field, 50-yard throw, seam buster. And Matthew Stafford's like, 4th-string tight end? That's my guy. And that's my thing. It's like he's going to throw it to whoever. He's going to spread to whoever. So honestly, the way I projected it, I actually have my projections here for Woods. Although albeit, disclaimer, big time disclaimer, this is before the Akers injury, so a lot changes after that.
A lot of tweaking after that one.
But I have it somewhere here, and I will try and find it real quick. Essentially, here it is. So Robert Woods in 17 games, I had 110 receptions for 1,370 yards. So 12.4 yards per reception, 14 receiving touchdowns. I know that sounds like a lot, but again, you have Stafford. I think really the biggest issue with Sean McVay throughout his career as a play caller has been the red zone. So now you have Stafford, somebody that can transcend any poor play calling or poor decision that Sean McVay throws this way that Goff couldn't. So there's that. Plus, you don't have a Todd Gurley in there that's going to take away 14 touchdowns like he's capable of doing. But on top of that, I had him at 28 carries, 196 yards, and a touchdown. So total, I had 1,566 total yards from scrimmage, for Robert Woods. With Cooper
Wow.
Kupp, he doesn't get any, for whatever reason, he gets no end arounds. Like, they don't want to give him the football.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So I don't have him projected to get any carries because he hasn't gotten any. And I have 105 receptions, 1,200 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. So as you can see where I'm going with that is that I do think his ability in the run game kind of adds more potential there. On top of that,
I think it gives him a
not as
safer
injury
floor,
prone.
absolutely, too. You know,
Yeah.
you know that he's going to get the ball. Where I think Cooper Kupp is going to have the more, volatility week to week. He's going to have some games where he's going to have 2 catches for 30 yards, and he's going to have other games where he's going to have 10 catches for 140 yards and 3 touchdowns. You know, I think that's what we're going to see from Cooper Kupp, where I think Robert Woods is going to be a little more steady throughout the season.
And that's, I don't know how you play fantasy, like 100%, but like for me, I'm going with steady all day. I'm not, like that's why like Will Fuller will never sniff my roster because I'm not doing it. I don't care if you're going to score 61 one day and then you're going to score 4. I don't need the 61 if you're going to give me 4 when I'm going up against the best team in the league. You'll give me 61 when I'm going up against the worst team in the league. I know how this works.
You know how to make sure that you never draft those high variance guys again? Just draft Tyler Lockett for 1 year. And you'll never, ever, ever want to go on that ride again.
Oh, I know. It's just this all the way through. It's like,
yep. And that's why Allen Robinson, man. Allen Robinson steady Eddie every single week.
Well, and with Justin Fields, and I don't know if they'll start him against the Rams. And here's the thing. Here's my issue with that. If they don't start him against the Rams, that sends a poor message to him. Like, hey, we want you to start, but we just don't want you playing against Aaron Donald and company. I don't like that. I don't like the way that sounds.
I don't know if I want him starting against the Rams, if I'm being honest. I mean, like a rookie, your first game ever is on a primetime game on the road, week 1 against Aaron Donald. No, let Andy Dalton go out and take those licks.
I mean, I wouldn't do it, but what I will say is that I do think I do think, regardless, I think the guy that's the starter by the first quarter of the year is going to be Fields. And
week 4.
I'll double down, and I'll say Trey Lance starts week 1 for the 49ers.
Get out of here.
Oh, absolutely. Because here's what I'll say about Trey Lance.
Take on a show today, and I said that he's not going to start at all this year. I said that it's Jimmy Garoppolo's job to lose. Jimmy Garoppolo is 22-8 since over the 4 years. I mean, it's crazy that in 4 years he's only played 30 games, but he's 22-8. I think it's going to be his job to lose, and I don't think he's going to do enough to lose it. I think that this team is going to win enough that they're not going to ever want to pull Jimmy out.
I just, man, Kyle Shanahan.
Let's hear it though. Lay it on me, Jake. I want to hear.
Kyle Shanahan's sitting there, right? He's got Trey Lance, my guy. He's also got my guy, Trey Sermon. You see what I mean with this? They get both my guys like that. But anyway, they got both my guys there. You talk about what they can do, like read option, all of that, right? But on top of that, you have Deebo Samuel, you have Jalen Hurd, you have Brandon Ayuk, you have George Kittle. You also have Elijah Mitchell and Raheem Mostert if they want to, also join in.
Don't sleep on Wayne Gallman.
And Gallman. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Just add to it. So where I'm going with this is that, Trey Lance, a lot of people don't understand. He's not as much of a project as like ESPN would tell you he is. And it's funny because I realized Trey Lance called his own plays at North Dakota State. North Dakota State is the Alabama of the FCS. So they're a big time program. He didn't have the best weapons. He didn't have, the best guy he had was the offensive lineman whose name is totally escaping me right now that I think went to Tennessee. That's Dylan Raduns. That is who he had. There's not a Bruce Anderson there. There wasn't anybody like that. And I look at Trey Lance. One, he is one of the best deep ball throwers I've seen coming out of college. He is unbelievable. His accuracy is pinpoint instead of generally. And there's a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that are still generally accurate. He is pinpoint accurate. That's 1. 2, great mechanics. 3, this guy is mobile as all hell. Something I think Jimmy G has a decent amount of. He's not horribly, he's mobile. I'll give him that. He's not a running quarterback. And that's where Trey Lance changes the game. Because when you look at, say, Russell Wilson, his first year, his rookie year, and how he got so comfortable is because he was able to move around and basically manipulate every defense, manipulate his view of the field, make things comfortable for him. Mm-hmm. And so I look at Trey Lance, a guy that's already shown you he can, call plays. I mean, he's the guy calling plays at the line of scrimmage, make protections. He's not a clapper. He doesn't stare down over at the sideline. I can trust this guy, but he's also got these crazy weapons. I'm going to go with him over Jimmy G, and I think they are, because I think the thing is, everyone knows Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, he may have a great win-loss record, but my biggest thing is that everybody knows him. They know his tendencies. They know what he is. Trey Lance, these teams don't understand. So
hey, I like it.
I'm telling you, man, if you want to win that division, you got to go balls to the wall. You got to put everything on the table. And to me, the 49ers did not trade up to number 3 and make that ballsy move to play Jimmy Garoppolo and sit this one out on Trey Lance. They didn't get him for the long term. They did. They didn't just get him for the long term. They got him for now, because how are you going to stop? I mean, they wanted Stafford. So clearly they didn't even want Jimmy Garoppolo. They're basically... They're like the Rams in an alternate universe where they weren't able to get rid of Goff. They were late to the party on Stafford. And so we're sitting here watching John Wolford and Jared Goff battle it out in training camp. That's where they are right now, because they didn't even want Jimmy Garoppolo to start. And so they do have Trey Lance, and I think he's going to start week 1. And keep in mind, last year, way harder for rookies to start last year. You didn't have preseason. This year, you got 3 games. So I think Trey Lance is going to show in preseason. You've seen those preseason darlings come out and everyone, but you know who was one of them? Russell Wilson. And it translated immediately. So am I comparing to Russell Wilson? No.
Yeah.
But also, yes.
And that's, I mean, honestly, I'd love to see that as a Bears fan too for Justin Fields. I think that week 4 against the Lions makes the most sense if they want to ease him into the role. But part of me just really wants to see him come out in the preseason and just wow everybody so much that they're like, well, we don't have a choice. We have to play this guy because he is just, worlds better than Andy Dalton. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for as a Bears fan too.
I'm an Andy Dalton brutalizer. People have said that I'm mean when I talk about Andy Dalton. I had Steve Weish on, and I thinly veil shot Andy Dalton, and he shot me down. He's like, I wouldn't say that. Andy Dalton didn't. And I was like, come on, Steve. Because I was just we were talking about AJ Green, and I was saying, yeah, he kind of got held back a little bit by Andy Dalton. He quickly was like, no, he did. Stop that.
Oh, come on, man. I don't know how much he was held back. AJ Green, all but the 1 year he was hurt, put up a 1,000-yard season with Andy Dalton.
Well, it's a matter of
could have been a 1,200-yard season. So
was he supposed to be a 1,000-yard receiver, an 1,800-yard receiver? We'll never know, because he was with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and now he finally gets Kyler Murray at age 32, 33?
Yeah. It's where was that? Oh no, man, that's so funny. But hey, man, you're probably busy as hell, so we probably have to wrap this up. Am I right?
I mean, Tuesday is my pretty slow day. That's why we picked today to do this.
All right, let's keep going then.
Yeah, what else you got to talk about?
Well, we got everything to talk about. I mean, we talked about tight ends and touchdown dependent tight ends. We talked about the tight ends that maybe an Irv Smith. You mentioned a great point that he's a very, what's the word? You'll have to help me out because I don't even know what I'm saying.
Very quietly racked up the second most points per time. I don't know what we're going with this one, but
he's efficient. That was the word. Starts
efficient,
with an A.
yes.
Yeah, I could not remember it. But so we talked about that. We talked about wide receivers, but we didn't talk about my guy who's also a wide receiver. You mentioned Julio Jones. Now, I'm weirdly a diehard Russell Gage fan. Where are you on him? Because I think he's in for a huge year.
Yeah. So I mean, since Julio Jones has been traded, I think I've drafted Russell Gage in every one of my best ball drafts.
Hey.
And he's not somebody that is, somebody that I get crazy excited about, but just the opportunity is going to be there. I already said it. I don't expect Kyle Pitts to come into this offense and take 140 targets as a rookie. It's just not going to happen. I love Calvin Ridley. I think that his ceiling is, number one overall. I think that he could outscore Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams this year without Julio Jones on that team. I mean, we saw him average 108 yards per game without Julio last year, but somebody needs to fill in that role when Julio's not there. And Russell Gage, it's not that I think that he's an eye-popping talent, but he is the best guy available. I mean, who is it after him in the depth chart? I can't even say his name. Zacchaeus
Olamide
Olamide.
and
Yeah, I mean
Frank Darby.
exactly. That's who he's competing for targets with. So it's not that I think that Russell Gage is a great player, but sometimes the opportunity outweighs the talent. And I think that, he's almost a lock to see 120 targets this year.
Yeah, I mean, and what's really funny, there's a lot of parallels in between him and Tyler Boyd. I think they're very similar players, and you talk about the slot. I mean, I think he's going to be playing in the slot a bit. Honestly, I think they might flex Pitts out on the outside, and they have Hurst as well. I was curious if they were going to trade Hurst, by the way, because I mean, Arizona's sitting there with Max Williams. I thought they might have tried to get a guy like Hayden Hurst, maybe.
Yeah. I wish they would have. And I got to shout out Hayden Hurst real quickly because 2 weeks ago I was on his podathon for his mental health foundation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst, great guy. He's done this for 2 years in a row now. They're doing year 3 next year. Great dude. And his foundation has an awesome message about raising awareness to mental health. I feel like if his name is mentioned on a podcast, I have to at least plug that. But I am with you. I think that Hayden Hurst, I would have loved to see him go to Buffalo where, he could have really made an impact there. And it makes that's the one thing that I think will make me change my stance on Kyle Pitts. I've kind of been like the resident Kyle Pitts hater on Twitter. Everybody's fallen in love with this guy, saying that he's a unicorn. And I'm the one that's not really that excited about it. But if they keep Hayden Hurst at his role at tight end and they start flexing Kyle Pitts out wide, then I think we can see an immediate impact. But if they're expecting him to play that standard inline tight end role and they're doing a lot more 12 personnel, then I worry about Kyle Pitts. But if they just, if all the people that are saying Kyle Pitts isn't a tight end, he's just a wide receiver that lines up on the line sometimes. If that's true and he is just running 100% of his snaps or running routes on 100% of his snaps, then I'll take my take back a little bit. But if we're expecting him to block, I don't see it happening. So the fact that they held on to Hayden Hurst makes me think that Kyle Pitts will be lining up in the slot and outside a lot more than he will be on the line.
That's kind of where I'm leaning. Now another one that's interesting is if David Njoku were to get traded, because I think he could still, succeed somewhere. He just has to get out of Cleveland, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Njoku, he's one of those guys that I fell in love with, and I feel like one of the reasons I hate Kyle Pitts so much is because of David Njoku. Like how many times do we fall in love with a first round tight end that just doesn't pan out? And he was that guy for like 3 straight years where I was just drafting David Njoku, and I was like, this is the year. This is the year. This is the year. And it hasn't happened yet. So, I mean, you can't deny his talent, but there are so many tight ends that you could say the same thing about. You could say that about OJ Howard. You could say that about Eric Ebron. You could say that about David Njoku. Like all of these guys, you're just saying they're not in the right position. I don't know if there is a right position for tight end. Sometimes these guys just don't break out until they're 28, 29 years old. Like we saw Darren Waller at 26 years old break out. Jared Cook didn't have his first great season until what? Yeah, he was in St. Louis at the time. What was he, 27?
We don't talk about old? Jared Cook. That's the Kyle Fuller. I'm going to use that.
All right. But I mean, we see it all the time where these guys break out late, and maybe it'll happen for Njoku. Maybe it won't. You can't deny the guy's talent. I mean, he's a fun player to watch. I just don't know if we're going to see it. And what do you think the best situation for him to go to would be?
I mean, I really like Arizona. I know there's a lot of pass catchers there, but that would at least maybe mold him into having a role down the line, because if he were in that offense, he could maybe get 500 yards receiving. That'd be a nice, launching point, because then, you have AJ Green, who's on a 1-year deal, Fitzgerald, who's probably not going to play, I would imagine. And I mean, yes, you have Christian Kirk, but he'll be a free agent soon. DeAndre Hopkins is paid, so he's the only one that's there with Rondale Moore. That's an opportunity. It's a shame. I'm not trying to hate on Max Williams, but I don't know. Well, I do not know why they let Dan Arnold go. I watched that guy torch the Rams left and right. Like, he's got ability, man. Like, he's now in Carolina. It makes sense to me because, like, here's another guy, Ian Thomas at Indiana. I was, he's going to take the next step. He's going to,
everyone's favorite sleeper last year.
Oh my God. Like, if he didn't take it last year, I don't think he's taken it. I mean, with Greg Olsen out of the equation, he should have taken it over. And just, Chris Nertz is getting more touches than you. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I think that's going to be a very different offense this year than it was last year. Switching from a pretty conservative guy like Teddy Bridgewater to Sam Darnold, who isn't afraid to sling the ball. I feel like everything we saw from Carolina last year is going to be just kind of flipped on its head this year. That's a team that I'm weirdly optimistic about, and I've been buying a lot of Robbie Anderson. I even like Terrace Marshall over there as somebody who can make an impact as a rookie.
That's another one. They chose Tutu Atwell over Terrence Marshall.
Yeah, I think you guys might regret that one in a couple of years. That Tutu Atwell, man, that was I don't hate Tutu Atwell, but it's just, that was a head scratcher for me. It's like, you probably could have gotten that guy in like the 4th or 5th round. I don't know if you needed to spend a second on him.
I have a pretty terrible reaction to that. That didn't go well at all. I have a pretty good filter, so I didn't like actually do what in my head I felt like doing, because we were doing a live draft show. But I got memed pretty badly. Like, my reaction, like I did like the whole like, are you kidding me? And like, oh man, I just remember raising my voice. Terrence Marshall is still on the board. And it's it kills me, man. I mean, they do it all the time, but they got, a few guys that I liked, and I didn't like Jacob Harris initially. So, now I really like him. So sometimes I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I loved Kevin White when the Bears drafted him, and I was wrong on that. Sometimes it takes a few years. We've all got the immediate gut reaction. I know Giants fans are just like tilting over the Kadarius Toney pick, but just wait to see how it turns out. Maybe Kadarius Toney's going to do something in New York. There's no reason to get upset before we've ever seen this guy take an NFL snap.
Oh, and he's also fun. Like, you didn't just get, like, with all due respect to Ted Ginn in the long career. Ted Ginn was drafted in top 10 and was like, he was like a gadget guy, a guy that could, maybe take the top off of defense, wide receiver 3 at max. And the Dolphins took him like 8 overall, and Darius Hayward-Bay, can't forget about that. The Raiders taking him in the top 10. He's not like that. I think that's the issue. And I guess we could talk about him a bit, because I really like Kadarius Toney, and I think it was really hard. I think the hardest for me to rank when I was doing my draft rankings, when I was scouting Toney and Rondale Moore, I was like, who the hell is better? I think they're both so good. And it's like, I just felt like I was nitpicking to the point where it was like almost counterproductive to try to find out who I thought was better. I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, and I've never had a neck and neck type of, positional battle the way I did with those two. And it was just like wide receiver 5 or 6, but like I could not decide who was better.
And I hate both of the landing spots for those guys. Both of those guys I thought would have been perfect fit, not as a Bears fan, but I just wanted to see those guys in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. I thought,
thank you.
That's exactly what that team was missing. And I like Amari Rodgers. I think that he fits into that role pretty well, but I think Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney in Green Bay would have been so much fun.
Oh my God. That would have been crazy. I mean, they had opportunities to get a lot of guys. And I mean, we're talking about, earlier we're talking about Jacob Harris. Imagine if you had that physical ability with Rodgers. You have him and Tanyan.
Yep.
There are a lot of guys that they passed on, and then they get Kylan Hill in the 7th round, and I'm like, how is Kylan Hill still there?
Yep.
And the Rams picked Jake Funk, and I'm like, man. I just, it happens. I mean, I think if Elijah Moore went to the Packers, that would have been terrifying. There's a lot of names, but I mean, well, who do you think is the better out of the two, Rondale or Kadarius?
I think Rondale Moore has the slight edge over Kadarius Toney. Just his athleticism. I mean, what that guy is capable of doing. No knock on Kadarius Toney's athleticism, but
Yeah,
Rondale Moore is just a freak of nature. I mean, he's
I think I put him over.
yeah. Did you? I mean,
You know what? You
it's
know
a
what I
tough
think
one.
did it? The video, him
It
squatting
was
600 pounds. I was like, all right,
I was
I'm
about to
done.
say which video, the one where you had like a 48-inch vertical, or the one where he squatted 600 pounds, or his broad jump. I mean, that guy, when you watch what he does in his
My
workouts, it's
God.
crazy to see a body that small and compact able to move the way that he does. He's going to be fun, man. And I hope that Cliff Kingsbury can draw some plays up for him and get him the ball in space, because we haven't seen him play in a while. And I'm ready for this guy to just take the league by storm.
Well, here's another athletic guy that I would honestly put in the same mold as like a Darius Hayward Bay and Ted Ginn that got drafted way higher than I expected. And that was the guy that the Browns got, whose name just totally escaped me, Anthony Schwartz.
I'm not too familiar with him. Where did he get drafted?
I want to say like third round. It was pretty high. I mean, I think the thing that really started the run on those field stretching wide receivers was Tutu Atwell going that early, because I don't think anybody expected. I know I didn't.
Started to run.
I had a 6th round grade on him. I like him, and I like him now that he's with the Rams. I can see his role moving forward. But yeah, it did start a run, and the Browns are really interesting because they have a guy that, man, if Odell gets hurt again, and I love Odell, but I'm worried about him, and I think I love him more of a player than I do as a fantasy option. I think I don't know. I love Odell, but yeah, I don't know if I can count on him because of that, the durability issue. And then you have guy that I do like, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm curious what your thoughts are on him, because he's starting to make some plays down the stretch last year in a bigger role. I know they added Anthony Schwartz, but he doesn't do the same thing Donovan Peoples-Jones does. Peoples-Jones is a guy that can give you those premium targets. Yes, I did learn something today.
No, I'm a big fan of him, and I mean, he could stretch the field. He could do a little bit of everything. I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think, unfortunately, with how much money they're stuck paying Odell right now, he's pretty much untradeable. So he is going to have to spend the remainder of his career, or his contract, in Cleveland. And I think that Donovan Peoples-Jones showed enough last year that if they could have moved Odell, they would have, but they're unfortunately stuck with him. So I think Odell still has 2 years left on his contract. I don't know if we're going to see him make much of an impact as long as Odell is around, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that, in my dynasty leagues, I've got him stashed on a lot of benches, because if Odell goes down, or if they are, if they do find some way to offload that contract, I really like what he can do.
Yeah, I think I have him on my taxi squad in Dynasty right now because that exact reason. I want him to have that year where it's like, all right, this is his time. I mean, I loved him in the draft, and that's a guy, he fell to the 6th round for one simple reason. It was the talent around him there. Shea Patterson was not doing him any favors, but I mean, hey, I think him getting those reps down the stretch, I think was a really good sign for things to come in the future. And he's so young that, you know what, I'm not really too worried about him as long as you stash him in Dynasty. An Odell injury opens up everything for him. And with Odell's past, I am worried about him. I think that's normal. I mean, he has had a durability issue, but, Odell does have those blow up games, and we saw that before he got hurt. He had a few of them. One against Dallas where he took off in that one. So he's still interesting to me. But where would you draft Odell?
Right now, I think his ADP is pretty fair, going in like the 4th round. He's actually somebody that I've targeted in a few leagues. But the Browns are in this weird position right now where they have 2 guys that just a couple of years ago were deemed superstars, and Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, and they could literally cut both of these guys. And Donovan Peoples-Jones and Rashad Higgins can both step in. And I don't know if this team misses a beat. Like, they can really just, if they could find a way to offload Landry and Odell, I think this team would still be just fine. They've got some really good young receivers over there, and it'll be interesting to see how they try to work them into the mix. But to answer your question, Odell's a guy that, if he's there late 4th, early 5th, I got no problem taking him.
It's tough because he was there the other day. I don't know why Keenan Allen falls the way he does.
No
I,
idea. Shiny new toy syndrome. Everybody gets so excited about Terry McLaurin and all these new young guys that they forget that Allen Robinson and Keenan Allen are just wide receiver one locks every single season.
I don't get it. I mean, you know what it might be? It might be like one, it might be a bias where I had him in the past, he didn't help me, which I'm not gonna lie, I have that with Christian McCaffrey. I will never draft him again.
Yep.
I'll never do it.
So if you've got the 101, who are you taking?
Saquon every time.
I love it. I'm there for that.
I literally have, I'm not even kidding you, Dave. I've literally drafted Saquon in every single league. I don't know how I continue to keep getting him. I got him in the second round.
Yeah, he's dropping so far right now. I had Stefania Bell with ESPN on my show a couple weeks ago, and I've been beating the drum saying, "Hey, Saquon's a freak of nature. He's going to come back. Don't worry about him." And then Stefania really scared me a little bit and gave her whole analysis on the injury, and talked about how the Giants are starting to step back on their promises of when he'd be able to play, and she thinks that he might miss some time to start the season. Thinks
Really?
that his best case scenario is that he's limited to start the season. And, he's still got 1 year left on his rookie deal. So if this, team is off to a slow start and isn't looking hot, they might just bench him and give him a full year. I mean, it wasn't just an ACL for him. He destroyed his knee. They had to go in, they had to wait for it to regenerate itself before they could even go in for surgery. It was like a full month after he injured himself that they had to go in for surgery. So this was a lot more than your typical ACL tear. And, you see Adrian Peterson bounce back from an ACL tear and rush for 2,000 yards. That's the outlier. That's not what most people do. So, Saquon, I love the talent. I actually just tweeted about him this morning with this highlight of him carving up the Bears defense. But he worries me a little bit because of that injury. Because you're not drafting a guy that's injury prone. You're drafting a guy that's injured.
Yes. And honestly, I'll add to earlier when we were talking about Henderson. I don't think people realize he's not fully healthy.
Right.
He's been super limited to the point where he's just doing, individual work on the sidelines. I don't know if he'll be good to go in training camp, but that's something there. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned that. I thought I would throw that out there. What are your thoughts on Zeke Elliott? Because I think I could be, completely out of pocket with this. I think he's overrated. I think he's super overrated. And on top of this, I'm going to say this. I think Pollard's better.
Ah, man, I see so many people saying that. That seems to be the contrarian take right now for the Cowboys. And I get it. I mean, no disrespect to Pollard. I actually saw a tweet yesterday where somebody said that Tony Pollard is better than Antonio Gibson. So, I mean, the hype train for Tony Pollard has left the station.
I love Tony Pollard. And I think part of it, I got to see him at the Senior Bowl. I've had Anthony Jones, the running back coach at Memphis, man. He is just, it's a factory there. And if you're not aware of it yet, I mean, Gainwell. I just think watching Pollard, and I got my first dose of it when he played against the Rams in that one blowout game in 2019. That was the end of the season. He just ran all over. And then you saw last year and he gets more of an opportunity. And, I'm not saying he's way better than Zeke, but I do think if I had to take one back right now, I feel more comfortable in what I saw last year with Pollard than I do in Zeke. And so in a way, it's kind of a meme. It's kind of a gimmick. Maybe I'm overreacting with Zeke, but I mean, hey, let's look at the most productive running backs: Todd Gurley, Zeke Elliott, Melvin Gordon, all these running backs, Le'Veon Bell, they're all just falling right off. And it's kind of worrisome for the position.
And I don't think that Zeke is there yet. Before Dak Prescott got hurt last year, Ezekiel Elliott was the running back 3 in points per game on the season. So he was doing well last year. And then everyone says, well, once Dak got hurt, Zeke fell off. But what a lot of people discredit is that Zeke was dealing with 2 injuries of his own. He had a calf and a hamstring injury that he was battling through last year. So I think that injury kind of opened up an opportunity for Pollard to, get some more touches, and then everyone fell in love with him. And Pollard is a great player. I love Tony Pollard. I really do. But at some point, you've kind of got to follow the money, and they're not paying Ezekiel Elliott $90 million so Tony Pollard can be the running back there. So Ezekiel Elliott, he's somebody that I'm still totally comfortable drafting in the top 5 of my fantasy football draft. This is going to be a team that still doesn't have a great defense, so they're going to be playing a lot of catch up, which just leads to garbage time points. We know that they like to feed Zeke the rock. And the crazy thing is, like, Zeke, when you think about him, you think he's like 28, 29 years old. Zeke is still just 25 years old. Like, that is like, I have to like remind myself that every morning. Like, Ezekiel Elliott is still just 25. It seems like he's been like just dominant in the league for so long. But no, he's still an RB1. And Tony Pollard, you know, he's a great late round pick. I think he's one of the most valuable handcuffs that you can get out there. But Ezekiel Elliott is still top 5.
Yeah, and another guy that I have a hard time grabbing that you mentioned earlier, I'm gonna assume you like more than me, Joe Mixon. Where are you on him?
Oh, I love him, and I just got an article published yesterday that's getting a ton of flack for some reason. You know, people on Twitter, they just don't want to believe that Joe Mixon can actually have a good season. So basically, what the whole premise of this article is that I don't even talk about his efficiency. You know, say whatever you want about his efficiency. At the end of the day, Joe Mixon is there are 2 guys in the NFL that can finish this season top 5 in carries and top 5 in targets: Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon. And people don't want to believe this, but it's true. Since coming into the league and taking over as the starting running back, he's averaging 17.6 carries per game, which is 5th best in the league. First 3 years in the season, Joe Mixon was averaging 3.2 targets per game. Last year, before he got injured, he was averaging 4.3 targets per game, so almost a full target increase from what he saw in his first 3 years. Additionally to that, he saw an uptick in targets every single week except one for the 6 weeks that he played. So they were getting him more and more involved in the passing offense. And now, obviously, Giovanni Bernard is gone. Giovanni Bernard was commanding 4.3 targets per game over the last 3 years. So if we can expect half of those targets to go Joe Mixon's way, on top of the 4.3 targets per game that he was averaging last year, that comes out to 6 targets per game. Only 3 running backs in the NFL last year saw 6 targets per game or more. So he literally has the path to being a top carrier and a top receiver. And I mean, he's 24 years old. They paid him $60 million. I think that the stage is set for him to finally have this breakout career, or I'm sorry, this breakout season. And we haven't seen it so far. And it's been frustrating. And he's burned a lot of people, and he's been hurt in the playoffs, and he got strung along all year with this mysterious foot injury. And I get that, but just give him another chance, because this is the year that it really is going to happen.
Dave, you might have talked me into picking Joe Mixon.
I'll send you the article once we get off. I did like a 1,600 word dive on Joe Mixon, and I don't know if you've seen it, but Twitter has been up in flames today over the fact that I said that that's the type of opportunity. The title is called Joe Mixon, the only workhorse running back you can draft in the 2nd round.
Oh my God. Hey, you know, I don't know if I did that with Trey Lance to you. I don't know if I talked to you into Trey Lance starting.
A little bit.
I think I was getting there.
Yeah.
You talked me into Joe Mixon, because that's a great point. And I don't, you know, it's like when things are just happening, like everyone's going every which way. I mean, this is so hard. Like being a content creator in like just any sport, it's hard when you get past free agency and you're like, oh, he's on that team and he's on that team. Like we can't even digest all that. So like that's a great point that you made that I haven't even thought of, that Bernard's gone. And man, I could not stand Bernard because it was like he just would take everything. And then you're sitting there and like I do DFS, or I did DFS a lot last year, and I'd be like, oh, this is the game. Mixon is going to go off. Mixon's going to go off. And he'd have opportunities, but those premium targets would always go to Bernard. Or my favorite was the play that I remember that cost me so much money. They did like a double reverse, and like Mixon handed it off to Bernard and he ran in the end zone. I'm like, no, that did not just happen.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than that. I lost my fantasy championship because of a Jalen Hurts garbage time interception.
No,
like literally just like the last play of the game, just like close his eyes, chuck it up downfield. It got picked, and I lost my high stakes championship league.
That's awful.
Yeah, you never forget those plays.
I mean, I could tell you every time I got burned by some random, like Roy Halou, I could not stand him. Daryl Young, I couldn't stand him.
Roy Touchdown. Halou, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, he because I had Alfred Morris and Halou would come in and vulture a touchdown. Then you had Daryl Young, their fullback, that would just have 9 touchdowns and 9 yards rushing. And then Dennis Pitta, I feel bad because like his career ended abruptly. Yeah. But man, he cost me so much money that one year.
Do you remember Mike Tolbert when LaDainian Tomlinson would just run it down to the 1 yard line and then
And then he
would just come chilling on. Oh my god.
Tolbert wouldn't even run, dude. He would just splash. He'd just like fall over and he'd be like, touchdown, you get 6 points. And you're like, how do you even get 6 points for that? Like
you
the dude
never
barely
forget
moved.
those.
Like,
you never forget those guys.
Oh my god. And then just my favorite is like the play action to like the offensive lineman when you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna get the guy that I needed in DFS, or oh my god, I'm gonna get the guy I needed to win this playoff game, and then they throw it to
Don Terry Poe.
Yeah, Jim Kleinsoft. No. I don't know. Like it was exactly like it was like I did that. Well, actually, the one that killed me, I had Godwin, and I think Tom Brady threw a touchdown to Vita Vea or something, and I was just like, no. Like,
well,
I mean,
they say that Walter Payton like took it to his grave that he was mad at Mike Ditka for pulling him out for William Perry in the Super Bowl. Walter Payton, after the amazing 1985 season that he had, he didn't score a touchdown in that Super Bowl. And he got it down to the 1 yard line. They pulled him out. They put William Perry in. And apparently Walter Payton took that to his grave.
Oh my God. That is believable. That's very believable. I mean, the dude is, he's the man of the year. That's what,
Yep.
But I believe that because it's like people forget, while these guys are great people off the field, you have that inner arrogance, competitive edge. Like, it's the Super Bowl. I got you here. Obviously, I didn't just get you here myself, but like I helped you get here, and then you're not going to do that to me. Like, I know Marshawn Lynch hasn't come out and just totally trashed Seattle. He even re-signed with them later on.
Yep.
But there's no way, there's not a day that goes by that Marshawn Lynch doesn't think, you scumbags. Yeah. Like,
he didn't go home and vent to his buddies or vent to his wife. Yeah. He was furious about that. He might have kept it from the press, but there's no way that he wasn't raging about that.
Oh man. And I would be too. We win if you just let me fall in the end zone. We could just put in Mike Tolbert, just collapse in the end zone. Boom, there it goes. Like, it's like it was literally at the 1 yard line.
Then he went to Carolina and kept that same exact role. It's like everywhere he went, he was just like, I think the word touchdown vulture, I think that originated from Mike Tolbert because that was literally his role.
Tolbert, well, Michael Turner also was too before he went to the Falcons, if you remember.
That's true. Yeah. I remember Michael Turner from his college days up at Northern Illinois University. That dude was just, I loved me some Michael Turner. Yeah,
he was fun to watch. He vultured touchdowns early on and then became his own guy. One guy that I didn't like, Sean Green. Remember him?
Yeah, with the Jets.
I'd pick him super early and then he'd just be horrible. And I'm just like, or like Carell Buckhalter taking all of my Brian Westbrook points.
Yep. Oh man, pulling out the deep names I haven't heard in a long time. So you've been playing fantasy for quite some time, if you remember all these guys.
Yeah. I don't analyze it the way you do. So like, I give you props for that because I just like pulling out the whole like the Joe Mixon stuff, the Irv Smith stuff off the top of your head. I have that for like the Rams, or I'll have that for like, MCU or something, but like I don't have that for fantasy. So I think it's impressive.
Oh, well, thank you. If it's just you write every single day, and that's pretty much what I do. Of all the articles that get published, 90% of them just get scrapped. I just write as kind of an exercise for me. I want to do a deep dive on a player, and then I'll just write up a few pages on a player, edit it myself, and then throw it in my junk and never look at it again. And then every once in a while I write one and I'm like, hey, this is good. Let me send this over to my boss and get this one published.
My God. No, that's good though. And it's a great exercise because it keeps it on your mind. It's like if you're going for like a job interview, to recite things in the mirror, or, if you're going to have a speech, recite in the mirror, recite to another person. If, I go on a podcast, people ask like, it's funny because people like that follow my channel are like, how do you know all this stuff about the Rams? Like, you haven't been in the Ellenbogen household. Like, my dad and I will go back and forth about this stuff. I have it ingrained in my brain, so I can pick this stuff out of left field and be like, yeah, Fendi Onabone and Michael Holman Awanui and like all that stuff. And people are like, huh? Like, and it's like, it's that same thing. As long as you're like keeping your brain active and you're staying away from the Netflix and the ice cream, then you're good.
Oh, I still have my fair share of ice cream.
I do too. Oh man, that's funny. It's always funny to go like blast the past because I think it's like, like when I mentioned Roy Halou, it's like in our mind, like I remember him, but does this person remember him? You know,
Nope.
it's crazy because like I mean, you remember that Eagles and Lions game when they wore like the yellow and like baby blue uniforms the Eagles did?
I don't remember that one.
It's crazy. It was like 50 to like 30 or something. Kevin Curtis had like 3 touchdowns. Like it was nuts. Like it was absolutely nuts. They never wore the uniforms again.
Said it was Eagles and who?
Eagles and Lions.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm looking at these right now.
Yeah,
These are
there
like
we are.
UCLA jerseys. I've never even
Yeah,
seen
it's
these
crazy.
before. Yeah, I found one picture and it is the 10 worst sports jerseys of all time is where that got pulled up from. Yeah, those
Oh
are
my
sharp.
God.
I don't hate those.
I like them. It's you know, people are gonna hate, but man, there's something about that you know, that baby blue and yellow. It
I like it.
works.
It does.
And then you say it, and then everyone's like wants to kill you because they're like the Kelly Green is, you know. My God. Oh man. I mean, we could. I'm sure you and I could talk for days about this. Do you have anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, man. Thank you so much for having me. You know, we've been connected on Twitter for a long time, but this is the first time we've been able to chop it up in a podcast or a show or something. Hopefully, it won't be the last, man. You know,
Oh, it
really
won't.
appreciate the invite today.
You're always welcome, my man. It's cool to finally, you know, obviously I see that avatar like every day. I like the stuff you're putting out, but like it's different when you actually talk to the person. I've heard you talk, but I wasn't actually talking to you. So it's a whole different thing. And I can't stress enough for people to do this type of content and just interact with people, you know? Because I feel like everyone's like, oh well, you know, by networking, it's about, you know, who you know, and like, you know, just like putting yourself out there and be like, hi, follow me back, and that's networking. It's like, no, there's way more to that. And I feel like this is networking, like,
Yep.
you know, and I think this is the part where I think some people that complain about how unlucky they are, they're not willing to do this stuff. And
Yep.
so this is also me complimenting you because I see you doing 3 shows a day and it shows that you're willing to do this stuff. It's why you are able to get a Stefania Bell and, you know, you get guys like Adam Rank and Matthew Berry. It doesn't surprise me because you're walking the walk, you're talking the talk. And it's like, it's really funny though, when you'll see like, I just have such bad luck lately. It's like, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll be the first to admit that I had a lot of good luck in this industry, you know, and but really, what that is what do they say? Luck is preparation and opportunity when they meet itself, and I, you know, put in the work, and I wanted to make sure that I was, you know, caught by somebody, and sure enough, for whatever reason, Joe Bryant with Footballguys, you know, he stumbled across my page when I was doing this random show and I had a couple hundred followers and we connected and it kind of grew from there. But yeah, you know, there is some luck involved, but yeah, I mean, you also need to put the work in. And like you said, this is networking right here. When we're doing the show together, we're connecting. And I think people discount that, you know, they just want to write and write
Absolutely.
and write, but doing these shows, you know, that's how you grow in the industry and get to know people.
I totally agree. I have been writing for a long time and I'm not the best writer. I'll be the first one to admit. That was my way of getting into this whole industry, so to speak. Yeah. And so, you know, I don't think I'm the best writer. I've written over 300, 400 articles, and now I'm starting to lean more towards the video and the streaming and what have you. And I mean, I think the biggest advice you can give to somebody is, I mean, we talked about just press record, but it's also just find something that you enjoy. Because if you are like, I want to get in the sports industry, and you podcast and you realize like you hate podcasting, like you can change. This isn't like, you know what I mean? This like you can change what you're doing. Like, I mean, you could start a YouTube. You could start, you know, a website. I mean, you
TikTok. There's so many different channels out there nowadays. You could do a TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. There's just like I don't think like there's ever been a generation that's been more blessed with technology and like the opportunities that come with it. Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time ever reading Matt Miller's. He wrote something about like why you should go to the Senior Bowl. It was like unlike any article he's ever written. And that gave me the idea to go to the Senior Bowl. And then I met all these people that I'm friends with on Twitter. I met them there. I made all these connections, like Charles Davis, like being friends with Charles. I play Madden and I hear Charles Davis. You know what I mean? Like that stuff is just so cool. And it's like, but it's not possible if you don't step out. And one thing, Dave, I don't know if you've ever heard this. My grandfather always said, be comfortable being uncomfortable, because as soon as you step out of that comfort zone and you're basically comfortable being uncomfortable out of that comfort zone, like the possibilities are endless and the sky's the limit. I mean, really, you're the only one that's limiting yourself.
Hit it on the head, man. I didn't know we were getting motivational today, but yeah, you nailed it.
I've seen some of your stuff. I figured we should end it on a high note, which I think it was already a high note, but hey, man, it's been an absolute bomb hanging out with you, and not in the bad way of that we bombed the show, but but man, it's almost been 2 hours and it's been a total blast. And I really do appreciate your time. I don't, take this stuff lightly. I know how much work you put in, how many shows you do. So it's an honor to have you on. Big fan of your co-host. Obviously, Steffi Smalls. She's been on here a couple times. But hey, man, maybe we'll get you both on here sometime, and we'll do a big show. And I don't even know. And maybe
we'll figure something out.
Furthermore, both of our teams are playing week 1, so maybe we could do something about that.
Ooh, all right. I like it.
So, if you ever need anything, obviously, I'm here. But that's gonna do it for us. Do you have anything else you want to plug?
No, just follow me on Twitter if you're not, at Dave Kluge. I'm not going to plug all the shows and articles that I have coming out because there are too many to list. But follow me on Twitter at Dave Kluge, Kluge, and you will see everything that I got going on.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. You guys take care. Until next time, take it easy.